Welcome to the Madison Miller Podcast. Today is Monday, January 10th, 2021. Big show today, recapping everything that went on over the weekend in the world of sports and pop culture. And then at the end of the show, I'll have my best bet for you guys. All right, we're going to start with the NFL. We'll go over all the scores from Week 18 as the regular season has finally come to an end. So Saturday night, Chiefs over the Broncos 28-24 as the Chiefs finish 12-5. Denver finishes 7-10. Cowboys over the Eagles 51-26. Cowboys 12-5. Philly 9-8. And then Sunday's games, Browns over the Bengals 21-16. The Browns finish 8-9. Cincinnati finishes 10-7. Lions over the Packers 37-30. The Lions finish 3-13-1. Green Bay finishes with the number one overall seed in the playoffs at 13-4. They didn't have to win that game. They were had everything locked up. No business playing everybody in that one. Vikings over the Bears 37-17 or 31-17. Vikings finish 8-9. Chicago finishes 6-11. Washington over the Giants 22-7. Washington finishes 7-10. Giants finish 4-13. Jaguars over the Colts 26-11. Jaguars 3-14. Indy 9-8. As the Colts eliminate themselves from playoff contention. Steelers over the Ravens 16-13 in overtime to keep themselves alive. Pittsburgh finishes 9-7-1. Baltimore finishes 8-9. Titans over the Texans 28-25. Titans get the number one overall seed in the AFC. Finish at 12-5. Houston finishes at 4-13. Saints over the Falcons 30-20. Saints finish 9-8. Falcons finish 7-10. Bills over the Jets 27-10. Bills finish 11-6 and win the AFC East. Jets finish 4-13. 49ers over the Rams 27-24 in overtime. 49ers finish 10-7. Rams finish 12-5 in the regular season. As the Rams are NFC West champs. Dolphins over the Patriots 33-24. The Dolphins 9-8. So good finish to the year for Miami. New England 10-7 as they get into the postseason despite not winning their division. Seahawks over the Cardinals 38-30. Seahawks finishes a disappointing 7-10. Arizona finishes 11-6 with a wild card as the Cardinals got spoiled of a chance to win the NFC West. Buccaneers over the Panthers 41-17. The Buccaneers 13-4. Carolina finishes at 5-12. And the Raiders over the Chargers 35-32 in overtime on a game-winning field goal by Daniel Carlson as overtime expires as the Raiders go into the playoffs. 10-7 is the 5 seed. Chargers miss out. They finish the season at 9-8. So I honestly thought that was probably the best final week of the regular season ever because of all the overtime games and all the dramatic finishes we had around the league. So that was pretty cool of a Sunday. All right, now we'll move on to the NBA. We will recap the weekend's games, and we will look ahead to tonight. All right, Friday night, 76ers over the Spurs, 119-100. Bucks over the Nets, 121-109. Raptors over the Jazz, 122-108. Bulls over the Wizards, 131-122. Mavs over the Rockets, 131-106. Timberwolves over the Thunder, 135-105. Nuggets over the Kings, 121-111. Lakers over the Hawks, 134-118. Cavaliers over the Trailblazers, 114-101. Saturday, Grizzlies over the Clippers, 123-108. Hornets over the Bucks, 114-106. Pistons over the Magic, 97-92. Pacers over the Jazz, 125-113. Celtics over the Knicks, 99-75. And the Heat over the Suns, 123-100. And yesterday, Nets over the Spurs, 121-119 in overtime. Clippers over the Hawks, 106-93. Wizards over the Magic, 102-100. Raptors over the Pelicans, 105-101. Timberwolves over the Rockets, 141-123. Nuggets over the Thunder, 99-95. Mavericks over the Bulls, 113-99. Warriors over the Cavs, 96-82. Trailblazers over the Kings, 103-88. And the Grizzlies over the Lakers, 127-119. Now we look ahead to tonight's game, 7 o'clock on NBA TV. You have the Bucks and the Hornets. My projection is Charlotte by a quarter, total 226.05. Yes, I project Charlotte as the favorite in this game. And they're 1.5 point underdog, total 235. So, unfortunately, the number is not high enough for Milwaukee for me to bet on Charlotte. I could conceivably just do the money line. But my play here is going to be the under. Jazz Pistons, my projection is Utah 19, total 217.15. That was a tough tongue twister to say. And it's 12 and 224.5. I'm going to lay the 12 with the Jazz, despite no Rudy Gobert. 7:30 Pacers Celtics, my projection is Boston by 6.25, total 215. Meanwhile, 7 and 215.5. So close on both sides. Slight leans towards the under in the Pacers, but I'm going to go with Indy plus the 7 as the podcast pick. Slight lean to Indy. Spurs Knicks, my projection is New York by 8 and 5/8, total 215.55. Meanwhile, 6 and 214.5. I'm going to lay the 6 with the Knicks. 8 o'clock, 76ers Rockets. My projection is the Sixers by 16 and 3/8, total 218.9. Meanwhile, it's 10.5 and 227. Tough one, but I'm going to go with the under. Next up, 10 o'clock, the Cavs at the Kings. My projection is Cleveland by 1 3/4, total 216.15. Meanwhile, it's 5 and 221. I'm going to take the Kings plus the 5. And then the Nets and the Trailblazers, my projection is Brooklyn by 18 and 7/8, total 220.3. Meanwhile, it's 10.5 and 229. I'm going to take the under in this spot. Now I'm going to go over the NHL games from the weekend, and we will look ahead to the games for tonight. Friday, Hurricanes over the Flames 6-3, Blues over the Capitals 5-1. Saturday, Stars over the Penguins 3-2, Bruins over the Lightning 5-2, Sharks over the Flyers 3-2 in OT, Panthers over the Hurricanes 4-3 in OT, Blue Jackets over the Devils 4-3, Avalanche over the Maple Leafs 5-4 in overtime, Wild over the Capitals 3-2 in a shootout, Predators over the Golden Knights 4-2, Blackhawks over the Golden Knights 2-1, Rangers over the Ducks 4-1, and the Kings over the Red Wings 4-0. Sunday, Blues over the Stars 2-1, and Ducks over the Red Wings 4-3 in a shootout. Now we look ahead to Monday. 4 games postponed. Blue Jackets, Canadiens, Lightning, Devils, Wild, Jets, and Senators, Oilers. That's a lot. 7 o'clock, you got the Bruins and the Capitals from Capital One Arena. Caps are minus 122. Bruins are plus 102 over under 5.5. Overs minus 114. Unders minus 106. Bruins plus 1.5 is minus 280. Caps minus 1.5 is plus 220. For this game, I'm going to go over 5.5 and minus 114. I think this is a higher scoring game than people think. 9 o'clock, the Kraken and the Avalanche. The Avalanche are a whopping minus 465. The Kraken are plus 350. Over under 6.5. Overs minus 122. Unders even money. Listen to this. Kraken plus 2.5 is minus 140. Avalanche minus 2.5 is plus 114. The inflating Avalanche lines, for real. Just to go with the play of value, I'm going to take the under 6.5 at even money. And say that Darcy Kemper plays well, but the Avalanche score not enough for it to go over. And 10:30, the Rangers at the Kings from Crypto.com Arena. Still want to go on a rant someday about that name change of that arena. Kings are minus 118. Rangers are minus 102. Over on the 5.5, minus 110 each way. Rangers plus 1.5 is minus 290. Kings minus 1.5 is plus 225. This screams Vegas knows for me why the Kings are favored over the Rangers, who have 50 points. But for the sake of the show, I'm going to go under 5.5 at minus 110 because minus 118 is too much juice to lay with the Los Angeles Kings in my opinion. So under 5.5 is the play for that game. Kings a money line, and the under would be an interesting, same game kind of thing. All right, to college basketball we go. We will recap the games from the weekend, and we will look ahead to your typical soft Monday slate. Friday night, or Friday all day. New Orleans over Houston Baptist, 81-65 in the Southland tip-off. Northwestern State over Incarnate Word, 83-80 in the Southland tip-off. Loyola Maryland over BU, 66-58. Army over Lehigh, 77-55. Southeast Louisiana over McNeese, 83-78 in the Southland. Marquette over Georgetown, 92-64. Ohio over Kent State, 80-72. Holy Cross over Lafayette, 79-74. Navy over Bucknell, 73-55. Penn over Cornell, 79-65. Princeton over Columbia, 84-69. Brown over Harvard, 84-73. Detroit over Milwaukee, 85-60. Oakland over Ohio Christian, 108-40. Purdue over Youngstown State, 71-61. Or should I say Purdue Fort Wayne. Cleveland State over Robert Morris, 78-77. Marist over Fairfield, 60-51. Number 22, Xavier over Butler, 87-72. And Nichols over A&M Corpus Christi, 84-75 in the Southland. Saturday's results. Number 3, Purdue over Penn State, 74-67. Number 12, Houston over Wichita State, 76-66. Number 16, Providence over St. John's, 83-73. Number 24, Seton Hall over UConn, 90-87 in overtime. Southland tip-off, Incarnate Word over Houston Baptist, 60-50. Clemson over NC State, 70-65. New Hampshire over Albany, 64-62. Duquesne over UMass, 78-74. Dayton over George Washington, 83-58. South Carolina over Vandy, 72-70. Chicago State over Cal Baptist, 58-56. Wagner over Sacred Heart because of a forfeit. Merrimack over Connecticut Central, 66-57. North Carolina over Virginia, 74-58. North Dakota State over Omaha, 71-57. Or 67. UNC Greensboro over VMI, 72-56. Texas A&M over Arkansas, 86-81. Oklahoma State upsets number 14 Texas, 64-51. Number 19 Villanova over DePaul, 79-64. Temple over East Carolina, 78-75. LI over St. Francis, PA, 75-70 in overtime. Bryan over Fairleigh Dickinson in a forfeit. Gardner-Webb over Hampton, 78-69. Wake over Syracuse, 77-74 in overtime. Stony Brook over Maine, 80-72. West Virginia over Kansas State, 71-68. Wright State over IUPUI, 72-58. Davidson over Rhode Island, 72-68. VC over LaSalle, 85-66. Toledo over Northern Illinois, 94-63. Rutgers over Nebraska, 93-65. New Orleans over Northwestern State, 80-79. The Southland tip-off. Western Kentucky over FIU, 84-71. Arkansas State over Yale Monroe, 90-83. Georgia Southern over Texas Arlington, 74-73 in OT. Oral Roberts over Western Illinois, 87-86. Stanford over Western Carolina, 86-60. Or 85-60. Missouri over number 15 Alabama, 92-86. Ball State over Eastern Michigan, 78-72. Number 25 Texas Tech upsets number 6 Kansas, 75-67. San Diego State over number 20 Colorado State, 79-49. Tulane over South Florida, 68-54. Coppin State over SC State, 74-65. Hawaii over Long Beach State, 72-67. Cal State Northridge over Cal Poly, 68-55. Tennessee State over Southeast Missouri State, 95-84. Murray State over Southeast or SIU Edwardsville, 74-69. Grambling over Bethune-Cookman, 68-66. Southern over Florida A&M, 80-66. Rice over UAB, 85-80. Louisiana Tech over UTSA, 79-63. Sacramento State over Northern Colorado, 85-71. Utah Valley over Dixie State, 79-71. Grand Canyon over Lamar in a forfeit. Mount St. Mary over St. Fran Brooklyn, 69-61. SC Upstate over Presbyterian, 82-72. Pitt over BC, 69-67. NJIT over Binghamton, 67-56. Loyola Chicago over Bradley, 78-71 in OT. Denver over North Dakota, 93-74. Furman over Mercer, 81-66. Wofford over East Tennessee State, 68-57. Chattanooga over the Citadel, 85-67. Belmont over Tennessee Martin, 81-55. NCAT over Radford, 73-72. UNC Asheville over Charleston Southern, 82-59. Number 1, Baylor over TCU, 76-64. Drake over Evansville at 60-59. Bowling Green over Miami of Ohio, 87-83 in overtime. Morehead State over Austin Peay, 66-55. Troy over App State, 68-53. Stetson over North Florida, 68-66 in overtime. Alcorn State over Alabama A&M, 78-71. Alabama State over Jackson State, 72-57. Miss Valley State over Prairie View, 84-82 in overtime. UMass Lowell over UMBC, 66-64. Oklahoma over number 11, Iowa State, 79-66. Number 16, Kentucky over Georgia, 92-77. Number 21, LSU over number 16, Tennessee, 79-67. A&M Corpus Christi over McNeese, 67-54 in the Southland. Tip-off, Washington State over Utah, 77-61. North Texas over Middle Tennessee, 70-63. Notre Dame over Georgia Tech, 72-68. Princeton over Cornell, 72-70. Columbia over Penn, 73-69. Jacksonville over Florida Gulf Coast, 69-66. Northern Iowa over Missouri State, 85-84. San Jose State over Valletta, 118-43. Eastern Washington over Idaho, 96-93. FAU over Marshall, 90-77. Sam Houston over Abilene Christian, 65-63. San Francisco over San Diego, 88-73. Brown over Dartmouth, 58-46. Eastern Kentucky loses to Bellarmine, 66-61. Southern Illinois over Valpo, 63-60. South Dakota State over South Dakota, 84-65. Miami upsets number 2 Duke, 76-74. Number 5 UCLA over Cal, 60-52. Number 9 Auburn over Florida, 85-73. St. Louis over Iona, 68-67. UC Irvine over UC Riverside, 68-51. UC Davis over UC San Diego, 78-71. New Mexico State over Texas Rio Grande, 85-73. Tarleton over Stephen F. Austin, 77-71 in overtime. Florida State over Louisville, 79-70. Utah State over New Mexico, 90-87 in overtime. Southeast Louisiana over Nichols, 77-72 in the Southland. Texas Southern over Arkansas Pine Bluff, 90-71. Ole Miss over Mississippi State, 82-72. Number 4 Gonzaga over Pepperdine, 117-83. UTEP over Southern Miss, 87-54. Jacksonville State over North Alabama, 65-55. BYU over St. Mary's, 52-43. And the rest of the games that were supposed to be played on Saturday were postponed or canceled. Sunday, Indiana over Minnesota, 73-60. Purdue Fort Wayne over Robert Morris, 76-70. Niagara over Quinnipiac, 76-66. Cleveland State over Youngstown State, 86-80 in overtime. Rider over Marist, 79-75. Siena over Fairfield, 69-62. Central Arkansas over Lipscomb, 93-88. Memphis over Cincinnati, 87-80. Oakland over Milwaukee, 86-65. Hope Shore over James Madison, 87-80. Elan over Charleston over Elan, 65-61. Towson over Northeastern, 70-67. Colorado over Washington, 78-64. Number 13, Ohio State over Northwestern, 95-87. Montana State over Montana, 66-59. And number 23, Wisconsin over Maryland, 70-69. Now I look ahead to today's games. Campbell and Winthrop. My projection for this game is Winthrop by 3 7/8. And it is Winthrop 4, total 135.5. I'm going to take the over on a blind bet. And I say a blind bet because I don't have my total projections for college. Wofford and UNC Greensboro projection. Greensboro 2 3/8. And it's Wofford 3. Total 125.5. Wrong team's favorite. Give me Greensboro plus the 3 and plus 126 straight up. Army Colgate. My projection is Colgate by 3/8. And it's 9 and 153.5. Give me Army plus all the points. Plus the 9. That is a lot of points. I think they can win too. They're plus 315. Western Carolina and East Tennessee State at 7 o'clock. My projection is East Tennessee State by 13 and 3/8. Meanwhile, it's 9.5 and 148.5. Laying the points at East Tennessee State. Bucknell and Loyola, Maryland. My projection is Loyola by 7 and 7/8. And it's 5.5 and 143.5. my projection is large enough to bet on Maryland Loyola, so I'm going to lay the points with Loyola. Holy Cross Lehigh, my projection is Lehigh by 3.25. And it's Lehigh 7, total 141.5. I'm taking Holy Cross in the 7. BU and American, my projection is BU by 5 5/8, and it's BU 7.5, total 130.5. All right, so the line isn't high enough for me to bet on American, so I'm going to take on the over. Navy Lafayette, my projection is Navy by 8.5. And it's Navy 8.5, total 136. I'll take the under in that spot. UIC and IUPUI, my projection is UIC by 6 3/4. And it's 7.5 and 125.5. I'll take another over. 7:30 Southern and Bethune-Cookman. My projection is Southern by 14 5/8. And it's 6 and 135.5. I'm laying the 6 with Southern. Morgan State and SC State, my projections Morgan State by 9. And it's South Carolina State by 3, total 150.5. I'm taking Morgan State plus a 3 and plus 126 to win the game outright. Grambling and Florida A&M, my projection is Grambling by 1/4. And it's Florida A&M by 3.5, total 135.5. I'm taking Grambling plus the 3.5 and plus 140 straight up. 8 o'clock Omaha and UMKC. My projection is UMKC by 11 3/4. And it's 9.5 and 141.5. So my projection's high enough to bet on UMKC. So laying the points with UMKC. South Dakota and North Dakota. My projection is South Dakota by 5 3/4. And it's 5 and 145.5. I'll take the over. Jackson State and Alabama A&M. My projection is Jackson State by 7 3/4. And it's 1 and 119. I'm laying the 1 with Jackson State. 8:30 Miss Valley State and Texas Southern. My projection for this one is Southern by 29 3/8. And it is 19 and 146.5. I'm laying the 19 with Texas Southern. Arkansas Pine Bluff and Prairie View A&M. My projection is Prairie View by 20 3/8. And it's 12.5 and 149.5. I'm laying the 12.5 at Prairie View. 9 o'clock Alcorn State and Alabama State. My projection is Bama State by 3/8. And it's 1 and 137. I'll take the over. North Dakota State and Denver. My projection is North Dakota State by 12. And it's 5.5 and 140.5. I'm laying the 5.5 with North Dakota State. Oregon and Oregon State at 10 o'clock. My projection is Oregon by 6 3/8. And it is 4.5 and 137.5. The number is too high for me to bet Oregon. So I'm going to take the over. And last but not least, San Diego Pepperdine. My projection is Pepperdine by 5.5, and it's 4 and 140. I'm going to take the over in this game. Now I'm going to move on to college football. And first I'm going to recap the FCS title game as the North Dakota State Bison came out on top yet again over Montana State, 38-10. North Dakota State, that's, I believe, 9 and 11 years, which is crazy. And they finished the year 14 and 1. Montana State finishes at 12 and 3. So North Dakota State really has been on a dynasty for a while now, and they've changed coaches throughout the years too, but they're still strong with that program. And Montana State had a great year as well, making it to the final. And now tonight is the big one, the national championship game. Number 1, Alabama. Number 3, Georgia. 8 o'clock on ESPN. my projections for this game: Georgia by a half, total 54. Meanwhile, Georgia's a favorite in this game by 2.5, and the total is 52.5. This is a tough one for me. I think that Georgia's been phenomenal this year. I love how they responded. And how they just put it on to Michigan. And I think that was easily way more impressive than Alabama beating Cincinnati. But that said, Nick Saban owns Kirby Smart. He owns his former assistants. And he's going to do it yet again. I'm taking Alabama plus the 2.5. Yeah, I project Georgia to win by my projections, but something tells me that Alabama is going to do it again. So give me Alabama plus the 2.5 and plus 115 on the money line. If this goes up to 3, it's a no-brainer for Alabama for me. But I'm just going to say Alabama wins. I think it'll be a good game. I'm going to say, something similar to the game we saw between these two teams in the national championship game 4 years ago when Devontae Smith caught that touchdown pass. And I'm going to say, 33-27 or something like that. I think it'll be a great game. I think Stetson Bennett will play well, but ultimately Bryce Young will be better. So give me Alabama plus the 2.5 and plus 115 on the money line. All right, now I'm going to do golf. I will recap the Tournament of Champions, which was the majority of it over the weekend. It was an interesting tournament, to say the least. And your winner of this tournament with the score of 34 under, Cam Smith. Second place with a score of 33 under, John Rahm. Third place with a score of 32 under, Matt Jones. Fourth place with a score of 26 under, Patrick Cantlay. Tied for fifth with 25 under, Daniel Berger, Colin Morikwa, and Justin Thomas. Tied for eighth with 24 under, Sungjae Im and Kevin Kisner. Tied for 10th with 23 under, Cam Davis and Mark Leishman. 12th with 22 under, Xander Schauffele. 13th with 21 under, Kevin Na and Hideki Matsuyama. Tied for 15th with 20 under, Taylor Gooch, Seamus Power, Patrick Reed, and Max Homa. Tied for 19th with 19 under, Sam Burns and Tony Finau. Tied for 21st with 18 under, Stuart Zink and Jordan Spieth. Tied for 23rd with 17 under, Brett Horschel and Siwoo Kim. Tied for 25th with 16 under, Evan Van Rooyen, Bryson DeChambeau, and Garrett Higo. Tied for 28th with 15 under, Joel Dahman and Brooks Koepka. Tied for 30th with 14 under, Victor Hovland, Phil Mickelson, and Harry English. Tied for 33rd with 13 under, Brandon Grace and Kangku Lee. Tied for 35th with 10 under, Abraham Ancer and Lucas Glover. 37th with 8 under, Lucas Herbert. And 38th with 7 under, Jason Kokrak. So it was a fun tournament. And Hovland, my pick, was tied for 30. So not my best pick ever for golf. Now we move on to news and notes. And boy, coaching firing bombs are coming left and right. And there's a ton of them. So on Saturday we found out that Vic Fangio was out as Denver coach. That was the first one to drop, and that was yesterday. That does not come to a surprise. And into this morning, as we're recording, Vikings fire Mike Zimmer and Rick Spielman after a disappointing 8-9 season. Bears firing Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace, which was bound to happen. Probably should have happened last year, but it happened this year. And Rick Spielman was a surprise firing for me, but not Mike Zimmer. But the total shocker so far, Brian Flores fired as the Dolphins head coach. The irony is that I threw him out as a possibility to get fired, assuming they were going to lose to the Patriots. They beat the Patriots, and he still got fired, and he finished 9-8. So I took that comment back from Twitter of what I said, because I made that statement of that could be a surprise name fired if they were to lose to the Patriots. But they beat the Patriots. They beat him, and he still got fired. But the reality of the situation is that the Dolphins probably fired Brian Flores because of the bad start, and they feel that their second half was a mirage. And and coming down moments ago, Giants coach Joe Judge currently meeting with John Mara, and he's trying to convince ownership to stay. And I think that Joe Judge gets fired. I honestly think Joe Judge might have something to do with Brian Flores getting fired. As crazy as that sounds. I think that the Dolphins might have realized, hey, is Brian Flores a Tom Brady product? He might as well be. And even though he was a defensive coordinator, but still, anyone who's worked for Bill Belichick, to me, is other than Mike Vrabel, a product of him. Because Mike Vrabel's the only one that's had success. Brian Flores never made the playoffs. That's just a sad part of the reality. And I think that Brian Flores could very well be in play for the Giants job if that opens up. And I would be on board with Brian Flores as the Giants head coach. I would be. Because the reason why Brian Flores got fired, I think Joe Judge might have sparked the Dolphins ownership, but the problem is the Dolphins are a dysfunctional franchise. And then Jay Glazer just subtweeted Adam Schefter. I mentioned I was hearing Flores could be surprise hot seat on yesterday's show, but added it would be so short-sighted of them to do so. And they did so. So that's was Jay Glazer's pick for the surprise. I thought it was in play for the surprise, but that was if they lost to the Patriots yesterday. But guess what? They beat the Patriots and he still got fired. That is just unfortunate for... And then Nick Costos, who's been on my show before, if the Giants want to go with the former Patriots assistant, can they please fire Judge and hire Flores right now? I mean, Flores is 5 million times more competent than Judge, and it's not close. I think that Brian Flores is probably probably the favorite for the Giant job. And then Dan Schneider, who covers the Giants, says, after reading what Glazer reported, I hope Mara takes the time to meet the Giants about what the players say and worry about its infraction future with the franchise or a player. Pretty much paraphrasing there. So I think that the Dolphins fire Brian Flores as an overreaction, perhaps, of the whole Joe Judge stuff going down with the Giants. I think Joe Judge is eventually going to get fired. They're meeting right now. I think we're going to get word on Joe Judge perhaps when we're still recording this show. So that's so if Joe Judge gets fired, maybe I'll have on a guest on the podcast to talk about it and whatnot, because As you guys know, I'm a diehard Giants fan, and it's been nothing short of a disaster more than half the past decade. Probably since Odell Beckham Jr. was drafted by the team is when the disaster started to kick in. And it's been shit ever since. But I don't want to make this a Giants podcast. I'll have a guest on later if Joe Judge gets fired or they announce him to stay to come and rant with me. Or maybe I'll have a couple. Who knows? Chargers head coach Brandon Staley, maybe that's a surprise firing after last night, defends the timeout call late in the game against the Raiders. We needed to get in the right grouping. And Derek Carr says it changed their plan and changed its mindset. Cooper Kupp won the wide receiver triple crown, leads the league in catches, receiving yards, and receiving touchdowns. Cooper Kupp for MVP, guys. Antonio Brown clears waivers. That comes to no surprise. Klay Thompson came back for Golden State last night. He said it was a night to remember. I'll never forget this night. I'm just grateful to be out doing what I love again. That was so cool. Kevin Durant on Kyrie being unvaxxed. I'm not about to do that in terms of forcing a vax on Kyrie Irving. The Yankees did something cool yesterday, hiring Rachel Balvac as the low A affiliate manager. She worked in the organization for them in the minor league levels as I believe it was a scout or something or an assistant coach, and now she's a manager. So that is very cool. The first female minor league baseball manager. I love that. Jamison Tyone throwing pain-free as he tweeted out a video during rehab from ankle surgery. Taysom Hill got hurt yesterday, a Liz Frank injury, and then Trevor Siemian took over, and the Saints played well offensively, but not. They weren't good enough to make the playoffs as the Niners beat the Rams. J.J. Watt designated to return. But he could begin practicing. He didn't play last week. Dylan Brooks out for about a month after spraining his ankle against the Clippers. Pistons acquire Bol Bol from the Nuggets for a 2022 second and Rodney McGruger, so that's an interesting trade for both sides. Pacers expected to keep Lance Stevenson for the remainder of the season after recent strong play, so that is pretty cool. Denver Nuggets signing Boogie Cousins to a 10-day contract. The Hawks as a potential sleeper for Ben Simmons, according to Mark Stein. Gerald Green back to the Rockets after stepping down from Houston's coaching staff, as he's joining the Rockets G League team to pursue the return to Houston. Falcons to bring back Matt Ryan. We talked about how Jay Glazer expect a surprise or two. It's funny, I threw out Brian Flores on Twitter yesterday, like I said, as the possibility of them losing the Patriots game. I did not think this would happen if they beat the Patriots. But, wow. So, Browns keeping Baker for 2022 as they plan to retain Mayfield. Russell Wilson staying in Seattle as the team has no plans to trade him. Well, Pete Carroll's future remains uncertain. That's another potential surprise firing. Antonio Brown's NFL future in doubt, as there's speculation that he may have played his last career game after his release from the Bucs. Jaguars interviewing Bill O'Brien, Kellen Moore, and Brian Leftwich for their job. Bucs extend Vita Vea, 4 years, $73 million, so that's a good contract extension for the star defensive tackle. And Jim Harbaugh confirms his NHL interest, as he'll entertain offers from the league. So Adam Schefter just tweeted that Dolphins GM Chris Greer is safe, but they're moving on from Brian Flores. Sharks waive Evander Kane as the team is terminating his contract due to breach of player contract and violation of COVID-19 protocols. Julius Randle fined $25,000 for egregious use of profane language in interviews before and after the game against the Celtics. And he took to Instagram to regret the STFU comment he made. Joe Judge obviously talked crap about Ron Rivera, and then Ron Rivera goes back and slams Joe Judge for his clown show comments on Sunday. And then he said, talk about your own team, which is a clown show. And Joe Judge better be fired because of that comment. I mean, I think he will be, but it's a matter of when the announcement's going to come down. Like I said, I'm trying to get this done before he gets fired because I want to do a separate show about that later tonight, whether he keeps his job or loses his job. I don't know if it's going to be Derek or James that will be joining me, or maybe my buddy Jeff Burns, who usually comes on for horse racing, but we'll see. Sue Bird returning to the Seattle Storm as she's running it back for 2022 instead of retiring. So that's so cool to go to the WNBA, coming back another year. Very cool to see. And something really cool, best NHL parlay ever, as FanDuel bettor turned $5 into $89,000 after correctly picking 10 winners to score last night, which was beyond surreal. It was Tomas Hertl over half goals, Brad Marchand over half goals, Braden Point, Jake Gensel, Jack Hughes, Alexander Barkov, Nathan McKinnon, Alex DeBrincat, Jonathan Marchessault, and Philip Forsberg. That's wild. That is so cool. Turning $5 into over $89,000. You love to see it. And then last news of the day, the saddest news of the weekend that broke many people's hearts, is the passing of Bob Saget. The former Full House and America's Funniest Home Video star passed away unexpectedly yesterday at the age of 65. Thoughts and prayers to his family and friends, the cast of Full House. All the former Full House stars were taking it to social media with tributes for Bob last night. It's just so sad and so unexpected. This is probably the saddest death since Kobe Bryant for me. Certainly the biggest celebrity to pass since Kobe Bryant. I consider Kobe Bryant more than just an NBA star. He was a celebrity for me. And it was reported that he was in a hotel in Orlando, and it was the Ritz-Carlton Orlando and Grand Lakes. Orange County Sheriff's Office was the one who released the news. They said earlier today, which was last night, deputies were called to the Ritz-Carlton Orlando Grand Lakes for a call about an unresponsive man in a hotel room. The man was identified as Robert Saget, pronounced deceased on scene. Detectives found no signs of foul play or drug use in this case. That's just so sad. Obviously, the saddest news of 2022 so far. Don't forget, Betty White died in 2021. So, Betty White and Bob Saget within 10 days is just really, really sad in this world. And those are two great people. And don't forget, Bob was also on The Masked Singer as the squiggly monster in season 4. And obviously over a year ago, it was in 2020 that Bob Saget was on. And he was a good get for The Masked Singer, I thought, and all the judges were right, pretty much. Like, even Ken got it. And I thought that Bob was a great job on The Masked Singer, and he was supposed to go on a comedy tour this year, and it's just so sad to see someone so special like Bob go. And maybe later in the week I'll do my top 10 best Full House episodes in honor of Bob. Alrighty, last but not least, my best bet of the day, brought to you by FanDuel. Some interesting stuff on the board, but I'm going to lay a unit in college basketball, -5.5 with North Dakota State against Denver. I just think North Dakota State's so much better than Denver. I'm going to lay a unit on it, and that's going to be best bet of the day. North Dakota State -5.5 on the road at Denver. All right, so that's it for today's show. I'll be back tonight with potentially a couple guests reacting to the latest news with the New York Football Giants, because I think it's so fascinating, and at the same time, it's such a mess. I just want to pour out some frustrations with some friends. We'll see if it's Derek or James or Jeff or whoever. We'll see. And tomorrow's show is going to be our usual show with more reaction to Black Monday firings and such. Hope you guys have a great day, everyone.